Welcome into the Sources Say Podcast, your go-to Kentucky basketball and recruiting podcast on the growing KSR Podcast Network, presented, as always, by our friends at Club Blue. Club Blue is the official collective partner of the University of Kentucky. I am your host, as always, Jack Pilgrim of Kentucky Sports Radio. Very excited to be joined by Shawn Smith of Frederick Douglass basketball. You may have watched him in the watch-along last night with KSR. That was a really good time. We got snowed in, so I had to do my in-game kind of live work duties. So it was fun watching Brandon Ramsey and Shawn Smith kind of bouncing their nerdiness off of one another, and then Stephen Peak just blowing a gasket. Just was beautiful, beautiful, beautiful content. So if you missed that, I believe Stephen just posted some of the rundown of like the 10 minutes worth of the best highlights of the night. But hopefully we can do some of those every once in a while. Some of the road games we don't go to or whatever, we'd like to keep those up. Appreciate the feedback on that one, but wish it could have been a better product because the game sucked. I mean, it was just an absolute fart sandwich of a basketball game that resulted in a third mediocre loss of the season for the Cats, 82-69 down in Athens. Thank gosh we didn't drive down. It was a game time decision for us. Steven and I were deciding whether or not to make the trip down to Athens. We got a nasty snowstorm here in Kentucky, and it was like 9.5 inches where we live, a little bit more where Steven is, a little less where I am, but ton of ice where I was. So we were kind of like talking it through the night before, like, man, we could probably get down there in one piece if we were just really slow. We'd have to leave at like 7 o'clock in the morning where it's going to be 8 degrees outside. But if we leave early enough and just drive super, super, super slow to get out of Kentucky where all the snow and all that, so once we get to Tennessee and on, probably be okay. But we were like, man, it's Georgia. Like it's you know, if there's one this week to risk our lives to go to, it's the one in Starkville. Like that's going to be a top 15 matchup. That's going to so much going into that one, and I thought that this would be one that Kentucky could kind of cruise to a pretty comfortable win. I still think they were capable of doing that, and I think that's what's really frustrating about this team. But thank God I wasn't driving back from Athens today. That would have been just absolutely terrible. And then listening to Steven for those 7.5 hours driving back would have been even worse. But I'm glad we got to see some of his real-time thoughts, and BBN got to experience him at his best. But Shawn, where do we start? 82-69, the physicality is an issue. The rebounding continues to be an issue. Big high-profile games, the shooting, their losses continues to pop up as a major flaw with this group. Just what is the kind of like, if you're taking one major thing to kind of say, hey, we got to get this right, we got to get this fixed going into, especially Starkville, but obviously in the meat and potatoes of the SEC schedule, what would you say that is?
I do think them not being able to match physicality is a concern, right? Because now the blueprint's out there to be disruptive with Kentucky, and I thought Georgia did an excellent job not letting Kentucky get comfortable in its half-court sets. And there were, Jack, I'd say 6 or 7 possessions, and if you were watching along with us on the live watch-along, where we were talking about, Kentucky had some ugly possessions that actually ended in baskets that I felt like Kentucky's possessions were on the brink of dying, and something good would kind of just come out of it just by luck or just being in the right spot. But I thought Georgia did an excellent job, even with Brandon Garrison and whoever was playing that middle third 5 spot, pressing up and making them uncomfortable and not letting Kentucky flow into its actions. And then on the other end of the floor, Jack, not being able to keep bodies and check bodies off the glass. Georgia got to the free throw line, and there were some bad things with the officiating, yes, but at the end of the day, Georgia played physical. Kentucky didn't match it. Georgia lived at the free throw line. Kentucky did not. And to me, that's a problem that I think is going to be a blueprint for teams to maybe try to attack Kentucky. And Kentucky's going to see the same physical approach to the game when they go to Starkville on Saturday. Is Mississippi State's going to try to make that a physical basketball game? Is Kentucky going to shy away from that? Because here's the thing. When you're this old, these guys kind of are who they are, right? Like you're not just going to reshape and mold those guys into being something different. This is a team that I think lacks physicality Amari Williams goes to the bench with foul trouble, has a physical punch to his game. And Kentucky just got pushed around a lot of spots. I know Jaxson Robinson struggled, which we'll get into. Jack, it feels to me like his energy is tied to making shots. And if he's making shots, I think there's energy. If he's not, I think he's struggling. I think he's right here now. And you're going to lose this battle more often than not if you get to that spot of your headspace. Just a lot went wrong, but this is SEC play. You're going to be having episodes like we had 2 days ago where we're praising what they did against number 6 Florida, followed by what the hell just happened on the road in Athens. The same way Knoxville is probably ready to burn to the ground today after getting destroyed on the road at Florida. Number 1 team in the country like that. That is SEC play, but Kentucky's got to do a better job matching physicality, having kind of a will to win in moments in tough situations. That's now 2 true road games where I thought Kentucky just did not look ready for the moment. And if those happen, Jack, we're going to look up and how we were talking 5-1 starts to SEC play. If you're not careful, it could be 1-4 if you're not able to get something going here in the next week, because this schedule just gets tougher.
And I think that is the biggest frustration I had leaving that one, was where you got to pick your battles in the SEC. Like, this is a league where you're not going to find any favorable matchups. Like, South Carolina is the only stinky team in the league, if you will, and they're not bad. Somebody has to be the worst. So it just happened. It just happens to be South Carolina, LSU, Missouri toward the bottom. But like, it's an unbelievable league where we said going into this Georgia game that there was a chance that they were going to lose in Athens. Like, that's just the nature of the beast with this league. But you have to pick and choose your battles and take the advantages where you can get them. And in terms of just pure personnel, as we saw to start the game, I think there was a pretty substantial talent difference between the two teams. And like, when the game tipped off, I was like, man, there are a lot of advantages here across all 5 positions that I think Kentucky, I felt good going into this one, but I predicted a double-digit win for Kentucky, and I still think that they were capable of doing that. But as I watched the first kind of segment open up, I was like, man, there's a chance that this could be a statement win for Kentucky, just because I figured, it'd be sloppy to start with, nature of the beast with this. That's what this Kentucky team is known for at this point. They're going to start slow and then figure themselves out. And then I just hated the response in that second, third, fourth, and then all the way through the finish line, essentially with the segments with the physicality and not looking to find those mismatches and the advantages and taking the punch. I'm so sick and tired with this group waiting for somebody else to kind of initiate, like, set the tone and control the pace and dictate just kind of the vibe of the game and say, okay, here's going to be how we attack. So you want to turn this into a track meet? We can turn this into a track meet. Oh, you want to muck this up and turn it into a slow, rock fight? Oh, I don't know if we have that. Ohio State did the same thing. It's the same script with all 3 of Kentucky's losses. 3 teams that Kentucky has a significant talent advantage, but took that first punch and just kind of said, well, Clemson's the only one where they really addressed the glaring flaw in the second half, and that was by balancing out the rebounding battle. But then Ohio State and Georgia were essentially the same game over and over again without the superstar explosion. Bruce Thornton didn't get that an individual effort with Georgia. Georgia didn't shoot really well, shot poorly in the second half. Like, there wasn't anything that Georgia did that made me think like, here we go. That's just the SEC. You're going to get those types of performances. I just thought Kentucky got manhandled. I thought they got out hustled. We're seeing this theme pop up. And if there's one reason to kind of have this, overarching worry as we go into the more talented and tougher competition, this Saturday being the best example of that, I don't know what the response is going to be. I don't know how you can look at Amari Williams, who just watches balls go over his head, failing to box out, not even trying to box out, getting out physical by guys 3 inches shorter and 30 pounds lighter than him. Andrew Carr trying to box out like he's, has a practice pad. Ainsley Almanor facing the wrong direction, and just there's so many just like fundamentally broken things right now that I'm just really confused. And you can win losing the rebounding battle. We just saw Kentucky do it against Florida, but you have to shoot the ball well in order to kind of make up for some of those flaws. And if, as we've seen, in these 3 losses, no field goal shooting percentage above 40%. If you're not firing on all cylinders offensively with making shots, you're going to get punked, and that's exactly what we saw in Athens. And I don't know what the fix is for that, Shawn.
Well, I mean, the concern would be as you're going through this thing is, is this team soft when it comes to matching physicality? And I think that's a real conversation that we got to have here. I think that this is a skilled team. I think that they've got guys that can make shots and can make plays. I thought also they got caught up in the whistle, and
I agree.
Emotionless when it comes to wanting to match the moment, but when whistles start going against you, you saw the wrong emotion. And instead of huddling together and somebody kind of being that vocal leader that kind of regroups you, when you have a team that has this many guys that have played, 100 games of college basketball, started 2 or 3 seasons of college basketball, that's where you want to see them not be caught up in the moment of what just happened and it's a next play mentality. I didn't see any leadership from Kentucky on the floor, where we've talked a ton about they don't really necessarily have a go-to guy that goes and makes plays. That's not just going to create itself throughout the season. But what I'm more looking for is who's that go-to guy that kind of keeps everybody engaged and in like, okay, next play. Whistle's going against us here. How do we match? We got to fix it. We got to match the physicality. Who's that vocal guy? Not the guy that has to make a play with the ball in his hands, but who's the guy with his mouth that makes the play? The guy that speaks up and kind of keeps you going. It's not Mark Pope on the sidelines. They need a floor leader. They need guys coming together in these dead balls, in these before free throws, after free throws, that's kind of getting you flowing to kind of be the coach on the floor. But the concern is, Jack, soft is not going to get it done in this league this year. When you're going back and looking, and I know that I don't want to get too far ahead here, but you got a tough task on the road here in Starkville. Like, Mississippi State is due in this series to win a regular season game. That doesn't mean they're going to do it. Kentucky needs to go down there and attack it with a chip on its shoulder. But when you're talking losing seasons in SEC play, I believe there have only been 2. If I'm not mistaken, maybe I know the COVID team went 8-9, but that was counting the league tournament game. But I believe there have been 2. You're looking up and you're staring down Alabama and A&M. You can get off to a bad start here if you don't find a sense of urgency to clean it up. You just beat number 6. You can't get caught celebrating beating a top 10 team, because what's about to happen is you're going to go on the road like you did at Georgia, a team that's hungry to prove itself, that is seen on film that you don't handle physicality. Guess what Mississippi State's going to do from the opening tip Saturday? They're going to play a physical brand of basketball, and they're going to see how Kentucky responds, because I'm telling you, that staff is probably showing clip by clip, like, look, this guy doesn't like contact. This guy does not want to fight you for this 50-50 ball. I saw Georgia going after everything with 2 hands, Kentucky going after everything with 1. And that is a recipe to lose basketball games in a league that is this deep, this talented, and has teams that to win basketball games, Jack, that's how Georgia has to play. And Kentucky has to match it, or they're going to lose basketball games. That's the blueprint now. And getting to the free throw line, I'm not getting caught up. The officiating, yes, there were some really bad calls. That was a physicality thing. Georgia got to the free throw line a ton. The fouls, I think Kentucky fouled 5 more times than Georgia, but the free throws doubled. So the whistle in those impactful moments of whistles led to Georgia getting to the free throw line. Kentucky didn't. And then you had a couple of fouls when Kentucky was trying to make a run, Jack, where it was a foul fighting for position or something that ended up marching you 90 feet to the other end for Georgia to shoot 2. Like, those are impactful whistles, but a lot of it was because Kentucky just did not match physicality.
And that's why we're seeing, some of these kind of wild free throw numbers and kind of the high foul numbers in some of these games, is because they aren't technically sound whenever it comes to addressing that fight and knowing how to respond back. That's where I just don't know where you get that from. I just don't know what the clear cut answer is. And when you get into this Saturday, Tuesday bounce back schedule, like it's really hard to address something like that on the fly. Like it's one of those just like, again, they're fifth year seniors. I mean, when you have so many old guys on the team, it's like, it's not like they're going to have a magical breakthrough today. How do you scheme around that? How do is there an answer to if you know that Amari Williams is not physical enough, it has stretches of physicality, but not sustained continuity of physicality. Like, how do you bring that out of him? How do you address it if he's not giving that? And Brandon Garrison, kind of the highs and lows, he'll have just the erratic moments where he'll look brilliant one play and then a disaster then the next. Where do you find this sustainability with this group?
Well, to me, I swear it's a lot is tied to physicality, and obviously I'm in the comments tonight on the live chat. I like when we go live because I feel like we get a good flow and rhythm of what the conversation is and what people want to talk about, Jack. And to me, it's not as much about matching physicality offensively. Kentucky does play a 5-out approach. They cut a lot. They run a lot of zoom. The physicality for me is you can't get to that end of the floor until you're physically ready to hit and stick or hit and go get a rebound. And that's where the physicality starts. It's closing out that defensive possession to secure basketball, and then you're going. And Kentucky didn't get anything easy in transition. They missed some shots at the rim. There were some plays at the rim that looked difficult. That Georgia just having a body there, I just thought that they just disrupted Kentucky in all areas. That it really set Kentucky back. Like I don't think Kentucky got really anything easy. Couple of possessions there, early second half, you're trying to make a run, and you end up with empty possessions. Otega had a play at the rim that should have been an and one, and instead he's not able to complete the dunk. So those things, like those are the areas where I thought Kentucky lost. When the other team shoots 29 of 38 at the line, and we had praised Kentucky for their numbers from the field, the three-point line, and the free throw line in the previous game. Well, when you shoot 38% and 24%, it's a recipe for disaster. And it's not like Georgia shot lights out. I mean, 29% from three for Georgia, Jack, it's not where you lost the game. But I thought Kentucky had droughts. Obviously, you see it right there, 0 of their last 6, 1 of their last 8, and then no field goals for the last 4 or 5 to close the game. And that wasn't the only trend that it looked like that. But I just thought that from a physicality standpoint, Kentucky didn't match it. And it can't be necessarily one guy that matches it. It has to be a total team effort to match physicality. And I'm not saying that you got to be in somebody's face defensively. I'm talking you have a presence about you when you set screens. You have a presence about you when you cut. You have a presence about you when you make contact to go rebound. And I thought there were a lot of plays last night where Kentucky just didn't give that extra effort that Georgia did. And when you look at it, it's a 13-point loss. And this is where you get into league play and games start stacking on you. You got it. Obviously, I don't know how hard they're going in practice today, if they're even in there. I don't know what the schedule's like for them. Is their treatment? Because you did just play a 40-minute basketball game. That physicality is set and established in the Joe Kraft Center, and then it's taken to the court. So if they're going to play more physical, it's not just going to happen by the flip of a switch in Starkville on Saturday. You've got to have it in practice. But this is where you got to get to the film. You got to take film to the floor. This team will be fine. We talked about this leading up to this game. There's going to be days where you're going to be like, wow, Kentucky won a really good game, and then you're going to follow it up and say, what the hell happened? And that is for every team in the league. And in the first pod, they went 1-1. Now your next pod's coming up. How do you finish in that one? It's a tall task this year in the league. This is a really good league.
I just hate that you now have to steal one because when you pencil in, hey, if Kentucky's going to go 12-6 in the SEC, here are the wins that they have to get there. If you lose in Athens, you now have to go win one that we weren't currently projecting. Like I, projected picked a win against Florida, win against Georgia, loss against Mississippi State. You got the 1-1 start, but now you have to kind of swap the Mississippi State in Georgia or whatever. That's just the nature of the beast when we go throughout the season now, that you have to steal one, and you have to take the wins when you can get them and find the little mismatches. And when you go on this stretch of Mississippi State, Texas A&M, Alabama, all top 20 net teams, at Vandy 38 in the net, like that's on paper one of the wins that you should be able to pencil in. You can't really afford to go lose that one, because then you do have to steal one at Tennessee, and can't lose the Arkansas one. It just turns into that wishy-washiness where if you let those losses stack and lose some of that momentum and lose some of that cushion, that's when you can start really, really hurting yourself with the seed lines. And once we start getting into the resume, because it is just such a cutthroat year where it's going to be such a fine margin where somebody has to just ever so slightly find the edges where they can get them, and that was an edge deciding loss in my opinion. You brought up finishing at the rim. Brandon Ramsey pulled up the stat: 12 of 20 on layups, 6 of 8 on dunks. In Kentucky's 3 losses, Georgia, Ohio State, Clemson, they're 1.2, 0.9, 1.1 points per possession on layups, just layups, not even counting dunks in those losses. How do you finish better at the rim, especially when you're not shooting well from 3? Like, that is the only way to get easy buckets, when you can get your hands on them and they're not executing. They're not finishing well at the rim. How do you go about creating those clean looks, and then, or is it just a matter of execution, finishing layups? I mean, elementary stuff.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I think that we can all agree that when you're talking pure athleticism, this isn't one of the more athletic Kentucky basketball teams that we've seen and we've grew accustomed to, right? Like this, outside of a couple of spots there, you've got Otega Oweh that'll try to punch one on you at the rim. And you've obviously you get a lob from Brandon Garrison last night. Like there are moments, but from an overall standpoint, this isn't the most athletic team. Lamont had the right idea. He gets to the paint, he tries to play off 2, he slips and falls, and it's a travel. Like, you don't have a whole lot of guys that are finishing over top and through people this season. Now, when it comes to the officials, and just kind of leaving it at this, like, there's a reason why I'm not getting caught up in the officiating cost Kentucky. Because if that's how we choose to get caught up and that's how they choose to get caught up, then they don't really necessarily see where anything needs to be fixed. That's why Mark Pope's not going to let it be about the officials for the next couple of days. Because sure, do whistles dictate games? Yes. Can they influence stretches of play? Yeah. But then what happens is maybe it's just a stretch of 2 minutes, but then it gets here, and then it's affecting you for the following 38, where you have bad calls, you have moments. I know a lot of people was upset about, Georgia player sliding across the floor last night, but technically that's not a travel. I know that's been discussed and stuff today, but there were some bad whistles against Kentucky, yes. But it didn't make up a 13-point difference. I'm telling you it didn't. Like, I'm not willing to say that Kentucky lost this game because of officiating. Maybe that's the coaching side of me, but I think Kentucky has to clean things up within itself. And as you said, you mentioned those numbers at the rim on missed layups, Jack. Like, that's enough right there. Not getting to the free throw line, which I know Kentucky plays a brand of basketball in open space that doesn't really have many altercations at the rim that get you those opportunities. Georgia's whistles didn't put Kentucky at the line. Kentucky's whistles did. And those things add up. Like in the first half, the fouls were almost equal. But almost every whistle led to Georgia shooting free throws and Kentucky not shooting free throws. So there's balance in the fouls, but the way the calls were impactful necessarily wasn't. And I just think that Georgia took it to Kentucky. Kentucky didn't match it. Georgia left the door open, though. Like when it's 55-50 right there, Kentucky was actually fortunate because then you get obviously the call on Andrew Carr. They missed, I know at one point they missed 4 straight free throws. Didn't score on an OB under opportunity. They had 2 clean looks at 3 that they missed. And then all your work that you had done was kind of covered up and undone because they push it back out to 12-13. That's where the game kind of got away from you. When Jaxson hit that 3 that was kind of a possession that looked like it was ready to die. Kentucky had 4 or 5 possessions in the second half. We're on the verge of dying, and they actually made a play. They just didn't make enough plays to leave victorious. So I'm concerned about Saturday just because I know what the environment they're about to go into, because that building has not left with a win against Kentucky in a long time, and Mississippi State has a good basketball team. And look, they got the benefit of a schedule where Kentucky hasn't. Starting out, like Mississippi State feels like they probably got a chance to go 3-0 in the league. And here's Kentucky trying to avoid one of those disastrous 0-2 stretches that we've been talking about, Jack. Like, how many of those can you avoid?
And I guess what my stance on the officiating, I thought it any opportunity, even when the door was open for Georgia, it just never felt like Kentucky was in a position to dive through it and kind of build that momentum. There were a lot of momentum kind of killing moments with the whistles, but when you fall down 13 at halftime, when you get out to a double-digit deficit early, you leave everything else to chance. And that's this team's identity at this point, and how they have, fallen behind, and again, I keep coming back to this entitlement, this assumption that everything will work out in their favor because they've never, they're a good team. They've overachieved in some ways, and we got to kind of go back to what our early season expectation was coming in. And like, if you were to tell us that we were 3-0 against top 10 teams at this point, 3 losses on the year, 12-3, like, we would say, wow, that's exactly the start that we were looking for. So we do kind of have to just ride the wave, thinking at the macro level instead of just kind of obsessing over the day by day with it. But when you establish an identity that is just always, let's give up let's spot you a 10-point lead, and then let's miraculously work our way back, you kind of leave yourself open to a kind of a 50-50 call swing in the other direction that you needed to swing, to kind of chip away and open up that door a little bit further for you. So that is something that I think the officials decided the momentum swings of the game. I don't think they decided the game itself, but the only reason why they needed momentum swings in their favor is because they got off to a slow start, because they didn't take those early opportunities when Georgia was dribbling the ball off their feet and clearly having a talent advantage early. They didn't take advantage of those opportunities and left it up to chance that we weren't able to get those momentum swings our direction. So it was just really frustrating. I'm tired of seeing this team come out and play lethargic and expecting like this like, oh, everything will work out just fine for us at the end. The urgency is not there with this team, and I think that's going to really, really come back to bite them, as we saw in Athens. Yeah,
and that's where, if you feel like you're getting a bad whistle, and like I said, there were bad calls. Like, I'm not going to say that Kentucky didn't get a bad whistle on a couple of calls or at certain times, and I thought that the whistles were impactful when they did occur. I don't want to see that break you apart, though. I want to see that bring you together more so. Like, all right, we're on the road here. If we're going to win this game, it's going to be because we just kind of go take this thing, right? Like, we lock in, we get stops that we need, we match physicality. You can't play to what the whistle is there. You just got to keep playing. I thought there was one, Amari's posting, he's fighting. I felt like you could have blown the whistle 2 times before they did blow it, and then the time that they blew it, it was Amari committing a foul. But you could have called a foul on Georgia when Amari's trying to fight and establish position. Now, it was a play where I think Kobe caught at the top of the key, and you had a post touch and a duck in. Amari's working. If you've got a body on a body putting that much contact for that length of time, somebody's going to get whistled for a foul. and it went 1 pass, 2 pass, 3 pass, and then it gets called for Amari. He had position. That's where I would have liked to see Kentucky give it to him, let him touch it, and then see what happens. But the play went on Jack, and it ends up being a foul that marched Georgia 90-plus feet to the other end of the floor to shoot free throws. Like, how many times last night did Kentucky foul 93, 94 feet from the basket, fighting for position or trying to establish position that then led to a position where Georgia didn't have to work for a scoring opportunity? Those are backbreakers, man, in a game where you're already struggling to score. You're not getting to the free throw line. You're not shooting it well. You're not really stringing stops together. Those are killers, because you're instantly walking to the other end and putting a team at the free throw line who shot nearly 40 free throws last night. Like, those are the calls that really crush you. And I know for a fact there were 3 of them last night.
Let's kind of dig into the not so fun kind of hot takey thing. I wouldn't say it's a hot takey, but I think there's a genuine debate to be had just about Jaxson Robinson and like what you do with him. Clearly a mental issue with him right now. I get it. Like, I understand that Mark Pope has to say the coach speak things and have that unwavering, undying belief in your guy, and saying, he's battle tested, he's a vet, he's been through this, well, said all the right things. But if you watch Jaxson Robinson, it's very clearly in his head. You don't go out and go through a performative post-game workout, just for the sake of doing so, like we saw after Florida. You don't post on social media that you're back in the gym at 9 o'clock after already going through that performative workout. Like, it's clearly a mental thing. It's clearly some type of hurdle that he's trying to overcome. And my goodness, like, the body language is just so poor when shots are not falling. And it's almost this like sense of relief when shots do fall, that like, is the fix there to bring him off the bench, do what has been working for him as a 6-man, Big 12 6-man of the year last year, one of the best players in the best conference last season, is the answer to kind of try to recreate what worked for him last year in terms of the energy and the, kind of picking and choosing and being able to kind of collect his own data as a basketball player, watching the game unfold, figuring out where he can find the advantages and coming in at that point. We already talked to Kobe Brea after the Florida game when he went 7 of 9 from 3, and he says, I don't care, I'm just a spark plug, I'm comfortable in any type of role. Is that a seamless kind of swap that could kind of bring out the best of both players? Or what's the other side of the aisle where you put a guy who's struggling with confidence on the bench? You're benching the star guy. What does that do for his confidence? Or do you even worry about the confidence? Because like this point, you got to win games. Like we're not here to babysit. We're not here to hold hands and work through some of those types of issues. We're here to win games. What is the best chance to win games with Jaxson Robinson on or off the floor for Kentucky?
Yeah, I know. We brought this up after what game did we bring it up? Where, he was comfortable. He came off the bench. Now he's in a starting lineup. And I know the minutes are similar, but if you're comfortable in a role, I'm telling you, this part right here is where over half the battle is if your mind is right in a situation, more than likely, I think you're in a position to where you're going to perform. And did he attempt one shot in the second half last night?
One shot, and he
made it.
Miracle heave at the top of the key, when not a
late clock
tradition, not a traditional Jaxson Robinson look.
Yeah, so 0 of 4 from 3 in the first half, and then 1 of 1 from 3. So all 5 shots came from the 3-point line. Is that correct? 1 of 5 overall from the field, 1 of 5 from 3.
Yes,
I'm for anything, honestly. Like, and this is where Pope has an advantage. When you've been with someone, you kind of can leave it up to them, right? Like maybe this is a sit down with Jaxson. You say, okay, you tell me, where are you comfortable? Do you want to come off the bench? Do you want to try? And I'm for it. Like when you have guys that have they've started, like Kobe Bryant started plenty of games in college basketball, played plenty of games. If it's just the beginning of the game that kind of gets you more in a frame that you're more comfortable in, then why not change it? But what I'm seeing is in that Duke game early in the season where he didn't shoot it well, didn't play well, I still thought he impacted the game in some other areas. But when I'm watching now, a lot of his energy and success is tied to making shots or not making shots. That's where you have a problem. And that's where I think you got to be able to play through those moments. You got to be able to play through, bad shooting nights. You got to be able to contribute on the glass. You've got to be able to get some assists, get stops defensively, guard the basketball, play with the energy. You can't attach one half of the floor to the other end of the floor and let it impact your overall performance, Jack. And I feel like that I'm seeing Jaxson do that now. I think he's getting so caught up and he's not playing well offensively. And look, this is a guy that came back for another year of college basketball. Feels like this is his chance to kind of maybe elevate his draft stock, and it's not being elevated. So what type of mental pressure is being placed on him right now that Mark Pope and the staff's going to have to help him kind of break through? Whatever it is to get him comfortable has to be considered and done. And I think that at this point, you got to experiment with it. And I was trying to look and see if, obviously, you and I didn't follow BYU basketball beginning to end. We didn't watch every single game, every single detail, but I was trying to look and see if he's had stretches of play where he had bad moments and figured it out. Because, there's still plenty of basketball to play, and Kentucky needs him to be good by the end of the year if they want to make a run in the NCAA tournament. But you can't be tied to making shots. Your energy can't be attached to that. If it is, man, that's gonna let you down more often than not.
And this is a kid who, has had brilliant moments on the road at, Fog Allen, at Baylor. He has played in massive, massive basketball games and found unbelievable success. NCAA tournament game, he went 8 for 15, 25 points, 5 of 11 from 3. We've seen Jaxson Robinson be a star, the star that we're kind of hoping for. And yes, is it frustrating when we see Chaz Lanier be, the guy that we kind of are missing with this group, the shot maker, the one kind of go-to when things are going tough that you can draw up a play for him and feel pretty darn confident that he's going to be your 3-level scorer that can, kind of take a game over and carry the scoring load, not have so many highs and lows, or, just kind of have to force feed to get going a little bit. It feels like that's the case with Jaxson. Like you said, it's when he's not making shots on one end and then he gets in his head with the distractions. Mark Pope said the word distraction last night, and, in talking about kind of some of the team's core rooted issues right now. I heard that after New York and in Madison Square Garden, now hearing that again after this one. But he misses shots on one end and then gets beat back door by Blue Kane on the other. Those are the inexcusable. If you're not making shots, but you're still, active in the passing lanes and incredible on ball and, just attentive and fighting and clearly, bringing that next level energy on the other end, I'll take it. I don't need you to be a 25 point per game scorer, but I can't have you be a net negative on the floor. I can't get you obsessed, so deeply rooted in your own mind that it allows you to be poor on both ends. Something has to give with Jaxson Robinson.
If I'm not mistaken, maybe I am, because possessions, that game last night was very difficult to watch, but the back cut, was it the 55-50 when he gave up the back cut?
Yes.
So, you're right there. You're making your run. Now, I went back and looked at last year's stats for him, and he had some highs and some lows and some stretches, obviously just shooting percentage wise that are pretty rough. So just kind of running these off here, starting with December 16th last year, he had a stretch where he shot 33%, 35, 28, 25, 42, 40, 25, 28. That's a rough stretch of shooting from the field, not from the 3-point line. And then you get in and he has a better close to the season. Like right here again, 36-28. But then he goes 62%, 42, 30, 30, 41, 40, 33, 50, 58. Like those are overall field goal percentage numbers. Like that's a lot of streaky, right? So when you look at his overall numbers last year and stuff, I mean, obviously it was good, but there were some moments at BYU too that where he didn't have great shooting performances. There's a lot of 3 of 12s in here. There's 4 of 13s from the field, but those 4 of 13s also included all 4 makes from 3. So like he had moments and stuff that were highs and lows, but I think a level of consistency from him, and this is why I think it's so important that he doesn't attach his overall performance to whether or not the ball is going through the basket, but you also got to find other ways to score. You know, can you get to the free throw line and get some opportunities? He's never been a guy that's gotten to the free throw line a lot. When you look at his overall numbers, the most free throws. So looking at last year, he had a stretch, Jack, of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games where he was 1 of 2 total from the free throw line. Like that's not getting to the free throw line at all. So if your game is only tied to making shots and you're not finding other ways to kind of get your mind and get your game going, you're putting yourself in a position to struggle if you're tied to just making jump shots. And that's where an overall game, I think, getting to the free throw line, getting some easy plays, defending and getting a stop, grabbing a rebound that's impactful, start your motor other ways. And then you just got to see it through here and just stay the course when it comes to your offensive game. And then this is where Mark Pope and that staff's got to figure out what is best for Jaxson, what is best for the team, what role does he need to play. But I think that we all thought, and we all kind of chalked it up, that this was going to be a consistent shot maker for Kentucky that they could go to in big moments. Not saying that they can't. There's still a lot of basketball to be played. And like I said, he had a stretch where he played his best basketball late last year. You've seen it. You saw it against Gonzaga. Kentucky doesn't win that game without him. But you can't be tied to individual shots or how you're making shots. It cannot carry over to the defensive end of the floor. And there was one other play last night where he was backing up under the basket, and it was a situation where you go after a loose ball with 2 hands, and there were 3 Kentucky players there that actually gave it up. So it's not just Jaxson. It's everybody that just didn't want to make a play that required them to fight. And that's what's got to change from an overall standpoint. But should you be worried about it? Yeah, I think so. But there's still plenty of time to figure it out. And I don't think Mark Pope's going to stop pressing Jackson's button, right?
And he shouldn't. Like I do not think that the answer to this is to isolate him out of the game and say, oh, Jackson's a lost cause. See you in the G League. Like that is not the answer whatsoever. The issue is he is such a value. You poured so many resources into him that you have no choice but to get something out of him. And like how you press those buttons and how to find the thing. And again, Mark Pope knows his mentality and what makes him tick more than anybody else. There's a reason why his experience in Fayetteville went absolutely just an absolute disaster with Eric Musselman. Those 2 personalities could not have clashed more. He won't even say Eric Musselman's name by name. Like that's just terrible experience. Better with Texas A&M, but that was the COVID year, weird year for him. The only coaching staff that has gotten the most out of Jaxson Robinson is this one. So kind of just going against the grain now is a really bad time. But like what we're doing right now is not working. We need something out of Jaxson. We're not getting enough out of him right now. So it is finding that balance of, okay, we can't just assume that the next game is going to be the one that he just magically makes the shots that he had in the game before. Like, how can you pull out of him just a little bit more without just having that blind faith in him? knowing that we've been getting burned kind of over and over and over again. Like he was okay against Florida, but really not good enough the way he should be and kind of what we have expected. And then the loss is just certainly not good enough. So I don't know. It's just a really tricky dynamic because you don't want to break the kid.
You don't.
You need the kid, but you also can't just keep going forward the way we've been doing, right? Like you have to figure out a different path that's we're clearly not getting right now.
No, you're not. And this is where all of us, those of us in media, those of us as fans, the thing that we can't let happen this year is you got to take this as an individual game, right? And that's our job, is we talked about individual games. We break down what went wrong, what went right. Was it ugly? Was it pretty? Was it in between? The emotions of this season can consume you, because I'm thinking the highs are going to be up here and the lows are going to be here. And I don't know if there's going to be much middle, right? Because when you're playing a schedule like you're playing, every win's going to just about make you feel really, really good, where every loss may even deflate you to an extent, because I predicted 11-7. 11-7 historically in this league is not good for Kentucky basketball. This year, I'm probably say we all come over to my place and throw a party, like 11-7 in the league this year. Like there's coaches that are going to be like, man, we survived. Let's get to the NCAA tournament and hope we don't see any of these teams that we just played, because we feel really good about when we play somebody else. So the thing is, Jack, I don't feel like we can get caught up in getting lost within this individual 40, because the next 40, if they flip it, they can go out and play well. And we're probably sitting here on Sunday, man, God, Kentucky got a really good win on the road at Mississippi State against a really good team that we think is better than the Georgia team they just lost to. So, but there are those little things that concern you, and they do need more from Jaxson. Nobody needs to write Jaxson off at all. Like, I think Jaxson will have some good moments coming up, and it's all about consistency with him. And I think that Mark Pope, I trust Pope. Pope's been with him a long time now. Cody Feger's been there. Like, I expect these guys that have been with him to push the right buttons. And I think Mark Pope will push the right buttons with this team as well and continue to put them in situations to be successful. But the thing that's becoming clear to me across the league, just through 2 games, you got to protect home court, because there's no givens on the road. None. Like, you got to win home games. Problem is, Kentucky's got some really tough home games coming up too. So what is the split on the road? Because you just saw number 1 Tennessee go to Florida and lose in a fashion that a team that when we're talking physicality, Rick Barnes and his team is one of the best in the country, and they got absolutely just drilled. That'll do something to your mental too. When you get back on the plane and go back to Knoxville and you walk in Prattville and you're like, what in the world did I just run into on the road in Gainesville? And that's a team that Kentucky just beat 106-100 over here. And then Kentucky comes out and scores 69. Like, the highs and the lows are probably where you're – honestly, I think the highs and the lows is your opponent this year in this league. You can't celebrate for too long, and you can't feel sorry for yourself too long, because if you get caught on one end of that, oh boy, it's going to flip on you pretty quickly. Like, this is a regroup and refocus and attack a new 40 on Saturday, because if you don't, Jack, you'll find yourself losing 3 or 4 in a row just by worrying about what went wrong in the one.
This has to be the shortest term memory in the history of the league. Like, you have no choice but to, like, if they are still thinking about Georgia at this point, then you're already setting yourself up for failure in Starkville. And
we've seen them. So here's the comparison, right? They didn't think about Clemson long enough that it hurt them in Gonzaga. They were able to flip it that week and go beat Gonzaga. Now, I know the Gonzaga first half was rough and hard to watch, and we're all sitting there thinking, man, Kentucky's going to lose 2 in a row this week. They avoided it. They've been able to kind of move on to the next one. And that is the whole approach to an 18-game league schedule this year, is it has to be about the one And then as soon as that one's over, it's about the next one. What's coming up? You can't get caught, even as a fan base, we can't get caught looking ahead because you know what's walking through the door. We know it. We talk about it. You know the quality. Every single time you play on Tuesday, Wednesday, or Saturday over the next 2 months, you're playing a team that can line up and beat you. And I think they can line up and beat you in any building. That's a challenge that you have to attack each day, and you can't get caught up in if you lost by 13 because now that one's behind you. Now it's Mississippi State. You can't let what happened to you here and the things that led to that kind of defeat you twice. And it's going to be, I think, a fun year. It's going to be a stressful year because I think you're going to have a hard time really evaluating yourself. And I think you're going to have a hard time evaluating other teams. Like there's going to be moments where we're probably, every one of us probably left Saturday thinking, man, this is a team that can make a run to the Final Four. And there were probably people, let's not sit there and think, man, this team's going to be lucky if they get out of the first weekend. Like that's just the way
they're going to lose 10 in a row and we're going to miss the tournament entirely.
Yep.
There we go. I'm ready to call it.
You're going to over-evaluate every single thing that happens in this league this year. And I think that the key is you don't evaluate it at all. You look at wins and losses. Where are you? And get the hell to Selection Sunday. And let's see what happens. But right now, move on from this one and move on to the next one. But I'm telling you, this next one, T-shirt night, student section on the floor, whatever, like, Kentucky's in for an absolute dogfight. No pun intended with the Bulldogs, but they're in for a dogfight on Saturday. Like that team's coming for you, and Kentucky's got to match it. And it's a challenge that you wear as a. All these games are good this year, but when it's still Kentucky basketball, and it still elevates you, and it is everyone's Super Bowl. We'll see that. Mississippi State will play out of its mind, but Kentucky's got to match it and play well, and let's see what happens.
My Super Bowl is with Club Blue. Club Blue is the official collective partner of the University of Kentucky. Club Blue was founded by UK fans strictly to support the NIL efforts at the University of Kentucky. Unlike most collectives, 100% of subscriber money and 100% of donor money goes directly to NIL. Club Blue charges no fees. Club Blue subscribers receive some amazing benefits like invitations to special events, meet and greets with UK athletes, signed merchandise, monthly giveaways, ticket giveaways, Club Blue merch, and more. Subscribe today at www.clubbluenil.com. You get to pick which sport you want to support when you sign up. Choose your sport and support with Club Blue. We're also along for the ride with our friends with Circa Sports Kentucky, the official sports book partner of the Sources Say podcast. The best time of the year in the SEC is right now, and the best app to bet college basketball is Circa Sports Kentucky. It's been an absolute blast betting on these games, especially the Kentucky games. I've loved every single second of it, but it's sports betting the way it should be, with high and transparent betting limits, the lowest holds, and exceptional customer service. It doesn't matter when they take the court, whether it's spreads, props, futures, or in-game. Circa Sports is the place to bet college basketball, fund and bet like a pro from anywhere, anytime. Download your new bookie today at circasports.com. Shawn, I know you've had an absolute blast betting with our friends at Circa Sports Kentucky.
Yeah, absolutely. We have. We need to get back to putting out our bets and our parlays going into some of these.
Because the game, the nightcaps are so massive that the Saturdays, this Saturday especially will be a big opportunity for us because it's gonna be such an awesome run of games this weekend. And
it's an evening game too. So
thank goodness, yeah. That 11 a.m. is just like, man, I can't even enjoy this with our friends at Circa Sports Kentucky. But make sure you join in on the fun with them. Download your new bookie today at circasports.com. Must be 18 or older. For Kentucky Gambling Problem Services, call or text 1-800-426-2537. Shawn, just panic meter. Like I know fan base, as we talked about, like the fan base right now just sees this like, every little game is like best thing in the world I just experienced on Saturday. Now I'm ready to, our pets' heads are falling off here on Tuesday. The back and forth, like, let's talk them off let's wrap up here. Let's talk them off the edge. Why are you not panicking right now about the Kentucky Wildcats?
Because everybody's going to be dealing with what Kentucky's dealing with right now. You got other fan bases. Do you think Tennessee's a good basketball team?
Among the best, yes.
And they just got back on a plane after a 30-point, just knockout punch. Where at one point in the game they were 7 of 45.
That is unbelievable
in that game. Kentucky's a good basketball team. Kentucky's going to have its moments. It's also going to have moments where you question what they are, and that is the beast of the SEC this year. This is a deep league with really good teams playing on these true road environments. It's going to challenge you every single night. The goal to me is don't overreact to anything, good and bad. Enjoy the moment, the good and the bad. Not every game is going to be ugly or not as pleasing to watch as last night. Like Kentucky's going to lose games that are more fun to watch, and they're going to win games. And they're also going to win an ugly one at some point in this league. So to me, it's about not overreacting. They're 1-1. They've had a really good moment in the league. They've had a really bad moment in the league. Take each game for what it is. It's an individual night. Let's stack it all together here in a few weeks and let's see where they are. Are there things within the games that make you concerned? Every team has concerns. Every team has a weakness or two that gets exposed. Kentucky has them. Now it's about, can Kentucky mask those weaknesses? Can they match them? Can they improve on them? Can they figure them out? That's up to Mark Pope and his staff. I think they will. And I think Kentucky will bounce back and have its fair share of good moments. Now, are they going to leave Starkville with the win on Saturday? I don't know. Well, all I want is for them to have a chance to. I want it to be Kentucky late with a chance to win the game, and you got to make plays to do it. That's all you can ask for in this league this year, is they got in a position against Florida, and they made plays to close it. They didn't put themselves in position to have a chance, to me, against Georgia. Like it felt like fool's gold when they did get it to 5, because I thought they were still getting some ugly possessions offensively, and they weren't really getting the stops that they needed to defensively.
Yeah, my panic meter is like a 4 out of 10. A 4 of, I don't know if there are any quick fixes for the physicality, but I also don't think the poor shooting is like long-term sustainable in the wrong direction. Like I think the scoring will figure itself. I think the volume needs to get back to, creating the shots, stop playing hero ball, get back to creating for one another. And I think a lot of the other stuff will figure itself out. So my panic level at 4 with the physicality. I hate getting punched in the face early. I hate taking these early deficits and having to scramble late, but this is a really good basketball team. This is a very good basketball team who it will make a run in March. We just have to work out some of the kinks in a really, really, really tough gauntlet of a schedule.
Yeah, and I'll give you my panic meter number, and I would put it at a 2 because I think they've beaten the 3 best teams on their schedule to this point. Like Duke, Gonzaga, and Florida, I think, are the 3 best teams that they played, and they've beaten them. 2 of them on a neutral floor, 1 of them at Rupp Arena. Like I said, there's things that concern you from a style of play and the way that they kind of now teams have a blueprint. Now it's about, that this team's going to attack you the same way. You've been exposed. How do you respond to it? And I just don't think you can get caught up in one game. Now, if we look up here and we're recording, and this is kind of going against everything that I've been saying because I don't want to look ahead, but if they lose Saturday and then you look up and they were to lose one of those 2 home games next week, and now you're talking a stretch where they've lost 3 or 4, now it's starting to pile against you. Now you're putting pressure on you to have to do some streaks and put some stretch of play together, to where you got to go and win one at Knoxville. You've got to go and win one here and there. And that's where you get yourself in trouble. So avoid 0-2 stretches and let's just see where they're at. Like, they've beaten good teams. They got a good team on the road. Let's see if they're ready for the moment Saturday night.
Yeah, and like Matt G is saying, his panic level's at a 0.5. We're playing with house money this year. Like, big picture, that's nothing has changed. Like Mark Pope is the man for the job. Will be the man. Like we're in a good spot. The program is an unbelievable spot. This is a house money year, but you still have to, like, your version of panic level for like we still have expectations for the team. Like, we still have to have an end goal. It's not like we're just playing these games for funsies. Like, if we're looking for the end goal of like, hey, are we trending where we need to be? How fixable are the kind of foundational flaws the team clearly has right now? Can you work through them? Are there workarounds? Like, those types of things have me a little bit more like, we'll just have to see how the game, does Jaxson kind of find his confidence and break through? That would cancel all my panic. Does Amari Williams find sustained stretches of 40 minutes of strong play instead of 10 of the elite and then another 10 of no-show? Like, just finding the consistency will go a long way with me here in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, and I really think that, and we said it, after they beat Duke in early November, I was like, this changes our expectations about this team. It changes everyone's expectations about this team. So, but, expectations, you can't wear them as a burden. And this team has performed well in the elite level games on its schedule that gives you the confidence that they can beat college basketball's best. That is something they've earned. We're now holding them to a higher standard than maybe what we did before the season started. We knew that this was an entirely new roster that is not the more athletic NBA in potential talent that this program is already signing and recruiting. It's attracting and recruiting, and it's going to continue to attract. But what it did is, when you beat teams, you raise your level of expectations. And Jack, expectations is a good thing. I'd much rather be talking about whether this team is good enough to get to a Final Four than us be sitting here talking about just make the tournament. Like, I like that they have lifted and kind of increased the expectations that we have. Now, it could be a bad thing if you have stretches where you lose some games and everybody starts maybe getting a little unrealistic about what this team possibly can do. But they have shown us, when they line up against the best, they can beat the best. So they have earned some of the criticism. They've earned some of the questioning and some of the concern and maybe some of the panic, because they have shown us that when they line up against Gonzaga, Duke, and Florida, they can win those games. I still trust them to be able to win those games, even after they had an ugly loss against Georgia. I expect this more to be a single individual moment here and there, instead of, and not a 2 to 3 week concern where they just have bad stretches of basketball. Like, Mark Pope and the staff will get them in the right direction, I think.
Totally agree. Team's very good. It's going to see some low points, going to see more high points, hopefully more of the high than the low, but that's the SEC this year, and we'll be along for the ride from start to finish. It's been a fun one thus far. Good start to the year, going to be even stronger finish to the year, and we appreciate each and every one of you for joining us for that ride. Shawn, appreciate you joining us for the ride tonight, and being a part of the watch along last night was cool. And then obviously tonight, I always appreciate your insights and all the good stuff you provide. And hopefully we'll be able to celebrate a big win down in Starkville. Hopefully we make it back down there in one piece and back in one piece, and don't have chaos coming back.
You just need me and you at the hotel down there around a fire pit. And that's what if they lose, it's because I'm not on this trip with you, because we watched an all-timer down there, and then you questioned if I have a brain or not.
You have proven time and time again you do have a brain. So we've come a long way since then. Shawn, got to get to the Mark Pope show tonight. Get his autopsy and breakdown of what went wrong over there. So flip over to iHeart right now, and we'll hear what Coach Pope has to say about it. Hopefully, lots of good things with the secret to success down in Starkville. We will see you then.